every spiritual aspirant constantly needs someone to remind them what they need to be doing. Our satsang needs to be constantly energized. Gujarati Swami was doing Vicharan, and he went to the village of Tori. Reached there at night, and when he was going towards the mandir, his utaro, he saw a shepherd with a group of goats. As he entered the mandir, he saw in the bushes nearby that there was actually a tiger there. The shepherd also saw the tiger. And the shepherd thought to himself that if I don't stay up all night and constantly play on my drum, that the tiger will come and it'll attack my goats. He stayed up all night. From time to time, he would beat on his drum. Gujarati Swami went to sleep, and the next morning, as Swami was going for his bath, he saw the shepherd. The shepherd was exhausted from staying up all night, and for just 1 minute, the shepherd closed his eyes, and he fell asleep. And in that 1 minute, the tiger came out of the bushes, grabbed 2 goats, and ran away. Gujarati Swami didn't wait to take a shower. Right there, he called the santos, and he said, "Ajoyu, did you see what just happened?" And then he said a Swamini Vat. He said, "Mumukshune nirantar honkara karnara જોઈએ. નહીં તો જેમ વાડામાંથી વાઘ બકરાને ઉપાડીને લઈ જાય ને, એમ મુમુક્ષુને લઈ જાય છે." Swami explained that every spiritual aspirant constantly needs someone to remind them what they need to be doing. And if they stop for even a minute, then something can happen and attack us, take us away. Nirantar, constant engagement. Shiji Maharaj is given the ideal for Katha Varta. He says, Pruthu Raja asked for 10,000 ears so he could constantly listen to Katha Varta. 10,000 ears means he wanted that much Shraddha so that he could always be focused on just Bhagwan Nivato. Katha is important. And the reason it's important, as the MC just said, he mentioned a Vachanamrut Garuda section number 324. In that Vachanamrut, Shiji Maharaj says that of all the 9 types of bhakti, Katha is the main one. Why? Because it gives us virtues. Dalpatram Kavi in the Hari Ridamrut, he writes, Ki Shri Hari Vakyamrutama Kayu che. Vakyamrut ella Vachanamrut. He writes, Shri Hari e Vakyamrutama Kayu che. Te Vakya mari smrutima rayu che. Jene Katha antarama na bhave. Nahi jatema guna shreshta ave. If we don't get addicted to Katha Varta, then we'll never be able to actually imbibe virtues. In 1985, we were going to have a 59-day festival to celebrate Gujarati Swami's bicentenary celebration. One of the programs in that festival was called Antarashtriya Manav Utkarsh Sammelan. Now, this is a long Gujarati title, and some people felt, is there an English title we could give it? Ishwarcharan Swami, he gave it the title, the International Conference for Better Living. Everyone liked the title, but they thought, let's see if we can get an outside opinion on what to title our program. So they contacted a very famous literary of the time. His name was Yashwant Shukla. 3 or 4 santos, senior santos, including Ishwar Swami, they went to Yashwant Bhai's house. They explained the program, and he agreed that this is perhaps the best title you can name your program, the ICBL, International Convention for Better Living. But then Yashwant Bhai made a request. He said, if you give me permission, I want to ask you a few questions. The santo said, ask. And then he gave his opinion. He said that for years I've been watching BAPS. You've been building many mandirs, and with all your mandirs, you build these large sabha mandaps. You have these mega festivals. You had one in 1981. You want to have another one now in 1985. You're spending so much money behind these conferences. Wouldn't that money be better spent to clothe the poor and to feed the hungry? There are millions of people in India without any subsidies or anything to survive on. And here you are spending all this money behind just Vato, Katha. Wouldn't it be better to spend that money on them? At that time, the senior santos, Ishwar Swami, Anand Swarup Swami, they reminded Yashwant Bhai of a prasang that had happened 3 years earlier in 1982. They said in 1982, Dr. Swami had gone to the United Kingdom for Vicharan. At that time, the devotees of the UK, they explained to Dr. Swami that this country has very good social services. If a person doesn't have a house, the country gives them council housing, and they have a place to live. If they don't have food or water or clothes, the government will support them. They'll even give them a stipend to live off of. And everyone in the entire country has free health care. And despite having everything that they need to survive, in 1982, the largest in percentage of crime, the largest amount of crime in percentage took place in the UK. At that time, Dr. Swami, and in this time, 1985, Ishwar Swami, Anand Swarup Swami, they asked Yashwant Bhai, why would that happen? If they had everything they wanted, everything they needed to be happy, why were they still committing crime? Because they weren't satisfied. Because they weren't really sukhi, really happy from the inside. And because of that, they committed crime. Malin vritti thai gayi. Yashwant Bhai realized that khali roti, kapda ne makan apvathi manas ne sukh ane shanti prapt nathi thata. They need something more. And whatever you need, those virtues, that peace, as Maharaj describes, all of that comes from Katha Varta. So it's been roughly about 10 minutes. I've been speaking to you, and I know you're watching this from the comfort of your own home, so I'll give you a second to check your phone right now. I'm just kidding. Please treat this like a real sabha. Put your phones, put your iPads away. If nothing else, these sabhas will act as an exercise in self-control. When you sit down for sabha every week, bhale apne ghare j baitha hoye. But Swami used to say, sit down like Parikshit. Shukdev started Katha Varta to Parikshit, and after 4 days of continuous Katha, Shukdev realized he hasn't even moved. He told him, do you want to get up, stretch your legs? Do you want something to drink? This was happening in India. He said, Mirinda, Fanta, Limca, kai piu chhe, chai nasto karvo chhe. Parikshit told him, look, I've made it fixed. જ્યાં સુધી તમારી કથા ના પતે ત્યાં સુધી હું આ પલાટી છોડવાનો નથી. આટલી દ્રઢતા કરીને કથામાં બેસવું every week, from the beginning of sabha till the end. Don't let any distractions come in. Focus on it, whatever it takes. In Africa, when they would come for Shastriji Maharaj's Samagam, they would come in a boat. It would take them weeks before they reached India. And at that time, one Hari Bhakta, Magan Bhai, would do Katha. Sometimes he would do Katha all night. The next morning, when the Maila Manda would wash the dhotyus for their husbands, they saw these little red dots on the dhotyus. They were confused at first. They thought, when you fall asleep in sabha and a purush falls asleep, he hits his chanlo on the back of the jabbo of the person in front of him. He dots that person. Thought, chanla na dhaga nathi. Why are there little red spots on everyone's dhotyu? So the women, they asked their husbands, and the husbands said, at night when Magan Bhai is doing katha, we're so engrossed, but we're exhausted. We've been up all day working on the ship, and at night we want to listen to 12 hours of katha. 12 hours straight. But we fall asleep. So to stay awake, we actually scrape our skin and break it to the point that it bleeds, and the pain keeps us awake. This is how much dhrarta they had for Katha Varta. It's our foundation in satsang. Halilamrut Malakyuche satsang no Krishna Katha che payo. The foundation of our satsang is Katha. Last week, we celebrated Bhagatji Maharaj's Janma Jayanti Mahotsav. Everything he built in satsang, he built on this foundation of Katha Varta. As a child, still in Shishu Mandar, he would go to the local mandir and listen to the pujari's katha. The pujari's name was Surya Bharati. And he would wait for this Shishu to come to sabha before he started the Katha Varta. When Bhagatji Maharaj was 10 years old, he came into contact with Gopalanand Swami. And he would listen to Katha all day. He would go for 4 months at a time to Vartal and listen to Katha. And everything Gopalanand Swami would say, he would remember. He wouldn't write anything down. He couldn't. He was illiterate. So he would take everything and jetlu shravan thayu hoy eni upar manan. In manan upar nididhyas. And for 13 years, until Gopalanand Swami went to Dham, this is what he would do. And then at the age of 23, he went to Junagadh. 23 is Kishore Mandar. He joined in the Gunatitanand Swami's Kishore Sabha. And he listened to Gunatitanand Swami. And in 1864, at the age of 35, he finished his entire sadhana and became Brahmrup. He became Brahmrup, Sakshatkar, in just BKY. S mato kai rayu nahi, khai Sayuk Mandal madla abad levano. All of this in Katha Varta, so much mahima that it would come out. He couldn't contain it. And that was a problem. It wasn't a problem for him, it was a problem for other people. There was a Paramhans by the name of Pavitranand Swami, and for whatever reason, he had made it fixed in his mind that I want to make sure Bhagatji Maharaj is Vimukh. He excommunicated Bhagatji Maharaj. Bhagatji wasn't allowed in the mandir. He wasn't allowed to sit in sabha. He wasn't allowed to go for darshan. This sound familiar to you? We're not Vimukh. You have to stay at home, but there are some parallels. Can't come to mandir right now. Can't attend a physical sabha. We can't go for darshan. So what did Bhagatji Maharaj do? He sat outside in the heat, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and he listened to Katha from there. Pavitranand Swami wanted to hurt him. He wanted to upset him, disturb him, do whatever he could. But Bhagatji was immune to all of it. Right now, with this virus going around, we're taking so many precautions to protect ourselves from it. We wash our hands. We have to make sure we don't touch our face, keep our surrounding area clean. But the best precaution we can take is having a strong immune system. And that's what Bhagaji Maharaj had built for himself through Katha Varta. He said, Gujarati Swami, Maru Bhaktar evu ghadyu che કે જગતમાં કોઈનો ટોચો વાગે નહીં. Nothing in this world can hurt me. That's the power of Katha. આ ભગવાન અને સંતના શબ્દ છે. So we have to make the most of this opportunity. It's a unique opportunity. And in every situation, there's always two ways to see it. We can choose to see it the way the world does, or we can choose to see it the way our gurus do. One time, Yogiji Maharaj was traveling in the villages around Sarangpur. At that time, we didn't have many mandirs, so all Swaminarayan Sampradayas would do their utara, would have their accommodations at any local Swaminarayan mandir. Yogiji Maharaj went to the Juna mandir that was running that local Swaminarayan mandir in the village. He did his utaro. A few hours later, the local santos, the ones who actually owned the mandir, they came to the same mandir. The pujari had double booked the hotel. The pujari was a little worried what to do. The main issue was that there was one kitchen. Now, who would cook and for who? Pujari was confused, so he went to the local santos, the ones who owned the mandir, and he asked them, there's one kitchen, you're here, and Yogi Bapa and the BAPS santos are also here. So would you mind making food for them? And પહેલા સાધુ તો ભડક્યા, ના હોય, કોઈ દિવસ એવા બંડિયા લોકો માટે કોણ રસોઈ બનાવે? Why would we make food for those rebels? We're not going to do it. Fine. Then would you mind if they made the food and you had their food? ના, એવા બંડિયા લોકોને કોણ ખાવાનું ખાય? એ એઠું બધું. Said no. I won't eat his food and I won't make him any food. Pujari didn't know what to do, so he went to Yogiji Maharaj. And he asked Yogiji Maharaj the same questions. He said, Yogi Bapa, would you mind making food for the santos from Juna Mandir who are also here? Are Guru, kem nahi? Santo ni seva kya thi? Of course, why wouldn't I? When would I get the opportunity to do seva for other santo? The pujari said, okay, I'm happy with that, but just in case they don't let you make the food, would you mind if they made the food and then you got to eat it? Yogi Bapa said, why not? Santo ni prasadi kya thi? So Yogi Bapa was able to find the good in any situation. That's what he was able to do. In this, what's the good? The sabhas are canceled, the opportunities, they seem limited, but actually this is a chance for us to do more personal satsang and more personal sadhana. Think about it, how much more time we have on the weekends and on the weekdays. Compare our lives. On the weekdays, we have to get to work, so we're in a rush. Every morning, we're in such a hurry that we don't have anything for breakfast. Some people have a shake, some people have a bar, some people, if they're lucky, can have some cold cereal and milk on the go. But on the weekends, from the moment you wake up, you know, aaj to gher betha che. Utawara nathi. I'm going to take 15 minutes more while having breakfast. Going to make something warm, pancakes, bataka pav, whatever you enjoy. But do you ever feel on the weekends, કે હાશ આજે તો નોકરી નથી જવાનું, ચલો 10 મિનિટ વધારે પૂજા કરીએ? સ્વપ્નમાં એ વિચાર ના આવે. But that's an opportunity we have now. We don't have to go anywhere. All the time that we save, we can use for something else. What should we use it for? Fill in those gaps with bhajan bhakti. More bhajan bhakti. Shiji Maharaj says in the Shikshapatri, Vyartha kalo na netavyo, bhaktim bhagavato vina. Don't let any time pass without bhajan bhakti. We have many more opportunities for you to get more katha varta, more gnan, more virtues at home. You can increase your satsang reading. Satsang reading is just as important as katha varta. Satsang exams just finished. So now you can read anything you want. And you can actually make it into a family project where if all of you are reading the same book, you can discuss it in Ghar Sabha. Satsang reading can help us progress in satsang. Another option that we have, Ghar Sabha. So why not make the most of this opportunity and celebrate Bapa Shatabdi Mahotsav the way he wanted it? By doing something that he wanted it. It's as if he's giving us this opportunity to follow his agna even more. Doing Ghar Sabha at least once a week. But if we haven't started, then start. In everything in life, there are actually different cycles. For example, there's a negative feedback loop and a positive feedback loop. I'll give you an example. Negative feedback loop. If I'm hungry and I eat, the more I eat, the less hungry I become. And the less hungry I become, the less I can eat. That's a negative feedback loop. Another example. if I start running, then the more I run, the more tired I become. And the more tired I become, the less I can run. Those are examples of negative feedback loops. Satsang doesn't have any negative feedback. The Gita says कि भगवान नु भजन प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते. Shiji Maharaj explains in Garuda section 2, number 16, the more katha, the more reading, the more sabha you do, the more shraddha and the more mahima you get. And the more shraddha and the more mahima you get, the more katha, the more reading and the more sabhas you can do. And again, it just feeds on itself. A positive feedback loop. There is no loss in doing more satsang. Labhaj che. So as we close today's first virtual sabha, we want to remember that this is a golden opportunity from Mahan Swami Maharaj, Pramukh Swami Maharaj. They've blessed this initiative. They want us to make the most of this opportunity to actually increase our satsang. Through vanchan, through satsang reading, through ghar sabha, through regular katha varta, through these virtual sabhas, any and all mediums that we have. And in that process, we can celebrate Bapa Shatabdi the way he wanted it. If you remember the first prasang I told you, June 6, 2008, when Swami had mixed in to the whole discussion of how to celebrate Bapa Shatabdi Mahotsav. At the end of the entire discussion, the Santo said, Pramukh Swami Maharaj Shatabdi Mahotsav ni jai. Swami said, Atyarthi jai na bolavta. Atyarthi aa badhu chalu na kari deta. Because it was still 2008, 13 years away. And then Swami said, Ke khari jayanti shu che? Baddhama ek number. Katha, varta, niyam, dharma, baddhama ek number. કોઈનો અભાવ અવગુણ નહીં, નિર્માની થઈને સંપ રાખીને સૌ મંડશો તો આ શતાબ્દી મહોત્સવ સર્વોપરી થઈ જશે. This is our chance right now કે નિર્માની થવું, સંપ રાખવો, કોઈનો અવગુણ આવે નહીં, એકદમ નિયમ ધર્મ કથા વાર્તા અભાવ અવગુણ નહીં, બધામાં એક નંબર આપણો આવી જાય. આવું આપણે કરી શકીએ એવી બળ બુદ્ધિ અને શક્તિ મહારાજ આપણને સૌને આપે. એ જ પ્રાર્થના. સ્વામિનારાયણ ભગવાનની જય.